Right, so we're again on with the downpipes for Sam Skyline now. We've been here before, but we're a bit more confident with the kind of turbo positions now, and therefore to work out how we want the downpipes to obviously run down the back of the bulkhead and then up into the kind of exhaust tunnel. So I've got the first downpipe kind of taped up. So I want to keep it as close to the manifolds as possible, because then that leaves me with the most amount of room for the turbo outlet and turbo inlet. I'm trying to keep everything as far that way as possible and give myself the most amount of room. So that is quite tight up against the manifold there, and then drops down, and I've got an elbow kind of pointing down towards under the other turbo. And then where you can't see really, on that rear turbo, I've got just another elbow coming straight down off the turbo, down towards where that front turbo's downpipe is coming out. So now it's just a case of how we're going to kind of attach them together, because obviously they both need to run into one, but they can't run into one as a solid. We're going to need some kind of flex joint in there, and they need to transition from 3-inch to 4-inch ideally. 3.5-inch will be fine, but if we can get 4-inch in, we want to. So that's the challenge. So if we have a look underneath, you can see now what it is we're trying to bring together. So the exhaust tunnel comes around here like this, and then it will obviously go up underneath the floor pan and then up towards the bulkhead where those downpipes come out. And what we've got is the two downpipes, front and rear, to connect up into a kind of Y piece. So we've got this rear downpipe, which is obviously coming straight down, and then this front downpipe, which is coming around at a 90-degree bend. Now obviously we can change this angle because it's all just taped together, but I think other than clearance here, I'd like to be able to raise it up a little bit, which we can easily do. But then we're going to struggle a little bit around this wastegate. So again, it's like you're always kind of chasing something. This is a bracket for the power steering line on the subframe, which we're going to have to move anyway. Where this normal power steering line goes, there's absolutely no room for it. So we're just going to have to kind of make up a new one to go with it. So I can't go too much higher, else I'm going to start clouting this wastegate. And I can't really go too much lower because of this bracket. So I think, to be honest, I might shave 10mm off it, but I definitely don't want to really remove any more than that. Maybe not even that. But then it is a case of connecting these two up. So these are coming in, about 90 degrees from each other. So now we need to create some kind of Y-piece to connect these two up at about a 45-degree angle, because I definitely can't push this tube any further that way. We're already struggling with bulkhead clearance. In fact, I may need to bring it a bit further that way yet. So I think it's just going to be a case of make up some kind of Y-piece, like a 45-degree Y-piece, offer it up there, and then see what we think. Because again, we've still got to transition it into at least a 3.5-inch diameter tube yet. So I've got some pieces cut. These are just 60-degree pieces, which is, again, like you always want like the merge to be as shallow as possible. The shallower the merge, when I say like the shallower the merge, I mean like the straighter those two tubes come in together. Like if they were kind of coming in at that kind of angle, obviously the gases are going to crash into each other, and that's obviously not good. So you want to try and kind of direct them as close as you can in the same direction. So as they're coming in, it almost forms some kind of scavenging effect. I mean, this won't do, but yeah, that's kind of what you're trying to achieve. But yeah, just got these bits cut together just so you can have something that I can visualise underneath the car, and it's going to want to go something like that. We need to try and bring these two pieces together. So I think we can definitely make that work with where it is. Whether it ends up being straight like that or we end up bringing it around a bit, I'm not sure yet. But it's definitely worth, at this point, cleaning this up, tacking it together, and then probably trying to work off of this rear downpipe, because that's going to be the tightest and shortest one, and then trying to get it kind of tacked on to that, I think. although I'm pretty sure there's going to need to be a joint under here. It's quite difficult to get the downpipe in and out. I'm not sure how much more length we can add onto the bottom and still be able to get the downpipe out the top. So at this point we might need to start thinking about that downpipe as finished as it is, and any adjustments need to be made after a V-band joint. And then we'll probably end up with 2 V-band joints in, because we'll probably end up with one on this downpipe as well. So it'll be basically, this downpipe basically like 3 pieces plus the wastegates. So yeah, there's still quite a bit of work in this. Right, so I've managed to get most of that rear downpipe kind of taped up now, rough where I think it's going to go. And I think it's actually come out okay. And the good news is I can actually get it down from the bottom. I don't have to take it out the top, which means I'm going to have one less joint in it, which is good, because joints mean space and we ain't got a lot of space. So this is the other half of my kind of Y piece, and that is then going to shoot off towards the other downpipe. Now obviously they don't line up at the minute, you know, they're quite a way out, but then this one's all taped up at the minute as well, so we've got plenty of adjustment in that. So I think what I'm going to go ahead and do is, given that that looks like it's going to be about right for a 4-inch piece to come down there, or 3.5 inch, whatever we end up doing, I think I'm confident enough that I'm just going to get all this section cleaned up and tacked up, and then probably put it back on the car, and then figure out how we're going to put a joint in here, because obviously we can't fit it as one whole downpipe. These 2 pieces need to remain separate. There needs to be some kind of joint, and I think if at all possible we need to leave it so that this one comes out the top, because if I add any extra length on here, it's just going to be impossible to get out the top, but also it's very difficult to get it out the bottom because we haven't got a lot of clearance between the subframe, and that downpipe's already quite long. So that's the next challenge really. Yeah, get this all tacked up and get something solid to work off, then look at that front downpipe again. Right, so I've got this rear downpipe kind of tacked up now, so that pretty much sits like that, going straight down. But now I'm at a point where it doesn't fit in from the top anymore, it has to go in from underneath. So this is where jobs like this really do become time consuming, because this is a lift up, lift down type job. So I've got to basically put it into the space, put the lift back down again, put the clamp on, tighten it up, and then put the car back up again, just to even look at how I'm going to tie that front downpipe in. And then I'll probably have to put the car down again, take it off, change something, put the car back up again. And the other challenge is now at this point, that front downpipe doesn't come out without having the rear turbo removed. So I'm going to have to actually remove the downpipe to actually make adjustments to that front downpipe. I don't know how many more times I can say downpipe in one sentence, but yeah, this is where these kinds of things become a real challenge and really time consuming. Downpipe. Right, so I've got this downpipe in now in the more or less the position it's going to sit. It might sit a bit further that way actually, now that I've looked at it again. Yeah, and you can see obviously this front downpipe I'd mocked up. I'm probably going to struggle to weld that gap up. So now it's a case of trying to get these to line up, and I also need to get a V-band joint in here somewhere and a flex joint. So yeah, there's quite a bit of head scratching to do, and then up, down, in, out, and all that. So yeah, leave it with me for a few hours. We're a few hours on now, and what I've done is obviously we've still got this main rear downpipe in here, and I'm just trying to play around with getting this to line up. I could do it like from underneath quite easily, get it to line up. The problem is I end up with slightly compromised pipework at the top, like not giving myself really enough room for the wastegate, not giving myself enough room for the air outlet of the compressor from the VIA turbo. There's quite a lot to consider. So I think we're probably going to end up with quite a bit of extra pipe work, so it kind of loops around. I think that's going to be the only way of doing it nicely. Again, it's like I could do it a different way, but it would just end up compromising at the top. So I think we're going to have to end up having to actually loop right around and then back in. It's a bit of a kind of S shape, I guess, just to try and get rid of that height problem. At the minute, if I just shove a piece of tube on the end of there, it's already up against the downpipe. There's not enough room for a bend in there. So I could just lower this, but then that makes it a lot harder to get my 4-inch kind of oval to round section in, because I'm going to have to oval off some 4-inch round tubes that it matches the height of that, and obviously I'll cut that out so it just becomes one big oval. And I need enough room to get a kind of nice oval to round transition in before we then have a bend in to go under the car. So there is quite a lot to think about, and I don't really want to compromise on that either, because then that ends up compromising on ride height. And if you compromise on ride height, you'll always be smacking the downpipe on things, and that won't be good. So yeah, there's still quite a bit more fettling to do, really.